multidisciplinary approach to being able to support athletes throughout their whole career. And somehow we have to navigate these relationships behind the scenes. And the athlete, if done properly, doesn't even have to think about it, know about it. It should all be seamless in a dream world. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome all new listeners, and welcome back to those who have heard my content in the past. Today, I have a phenomenal guest speaker, Mr. Zachary Feiner. Is it Zach or Zachary?
Zach.
Zach is okay. He if you can't tell, if you're on YouTube, he gave me a little face wince. So we're going to call him Zachary. All right. Today we're talking about collaboration and dealing with or managing relationships with pro teams, athletic trainers, coaches, multidisciplinary approach to being able to support athletes throughout their whole career. And somehow we have to navigate these relationships behind the scenes. And the athlete, if done properly, doesn't even have to think about it, know about it. It should all be seamless in a dream world. And that's what we're talking about in today's podcast. So Zachary is coming in with some questions, and I had no better idea than to put him on the podcast, put him on the spot, because there's so many people who ask me these questions. And I'll ask Zach about his background and everything else. But just to know from the background, many of you, if you have this problem, good for you. You've gotten to a point where you're now creating relationships. In our company, we call them strategic partnerships, and you're trying to balance out, I just want to help, and they might see it as, well, who are you? and all you're trying to do is really help your community, help the people that you serve, and you want to do it at a different level, a different standard. And the way you navigate this can be a game changer in ruining the relationship or not. It's just knowing what to do. So we're here to help Zachary and help navigate this, but I hope this helps for the rest of you who have these same questions along your journey. So Zach, let's give them a little background. Who are you, and what do you do? Where do you live? And just your story on where you're at today. Tell me.
Yeah. So originally born and raised in Boston, Mass, and got my DPT from Ithaca College in upstate New York. I've moved out to Santa Barbara and been in Santa Barbara, California for the last 4 years now, since the end of 2018.
Cool.
Working for the same outpatient physical therapy clinic, and then have transitioned to half of my time at a more concierge-based PT and performance facility. So
I love that.
My time 50.
I love that. I love that. And so how many years have you been practicing now?
4.
4 years.
Just shy of 4.
Just shy of 4 years. Okay. And how did we meet? Because we've been on this journey for a couple years, not just 1 or 2. So tell me about, how did we first come to meet? What do you got?
Let's see. I came across your content from a friend of mine. Cool. who's going down to one of your courses.
Awesome.
And so partly I needed continuing education credit, and was also intrigued in a bunch of the topics that you were providing. So went down to San Diego and met you at your first location as sports performance.
That's right.
And then have been following you ever since.
Wait, I think, did you go to the cupping course?
I went to the
you went to the cupping course? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that was a few years back, and then you've done the virtual barbell course with me.
Virtual barbell, yeah.
Right, and then you did the in-person accelerator, most recently. Awesome. And for the listeners out there, so some of you are starting the journey with me, some have been along for quite a while, and everyone, my vision is to help people throughout their whole career. There's CEU courses, and then there's me. I'm I'm good. I will do the CEU courses. That's cool. But I understand your professional journey, and I'm just gonna like keep giving you stuff along that because I know you're gonna run into challenges. I know it because I'm still going through them. So my vision is to do that. So yeah, Zach, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Like, what is it that you enjoy about the content? Because we're doing a strategy call today, right? We're trying to figure out like what's the next stage for you. For some people who are just starting that journey, like what is it that you enjoy about the content that I deliver and the course that I do? So give context. What do you got?
I think for the most part, it boils down to thinking about the why for clinical decision making
For sure.
stuff. And there are all sorts of courses and social media influencers and other clinicians
For
who
sure.
have different approaches on what to do and
Yeah, for
how
sure.
to do it, right? So there are probably the age old expression, like 100 ways to skin a cat,
For
right?
sure.
There's a ton of different ways to treat, but so long as you are thinking through all the reasons why
Yep.
and you have the right foundation
Yep.
for why you're making those decisions,
Understand.
then I think you're going to be safe. And
Yep.
that's what your courses and your
Yep.
content provides, is a higher level thinking.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, and just to piggyback off of that, 100%. That's my framework. I think there's like content people. I think that's really, really good. And like, there's going to be like, they're really good at the knee and really good at the shoulder. My vision is to help people. It doesn't matter like what course you're taking. Like, does this go underneath one umbrella of your personal philosophy, and does it jive with you, right? Like where you are. And I think if you can develop that early in your career, man, I think those are the game changer clinicians, the ones who can put it underneath like an umbrella versus compartmentalize like, oh, this is knee joint treatment, this is like back pain treatment, this is like, and then like, who cares? If you can put it under the context of how and you're managing somebody, man, that's a game changer. All right, Zachary, that helps tremendously as we continue to educate others. All right, as you can see, I am in a chaotic environment. My kids are home for the summer, and we're just navigating that. So thank you, listeners. We're going organic on this one. This is my life. You're on the journey with me. All right. So Zachary, give me. You said you have two big questions on the strategy call. How can I help best? And then two, how let's put this in the context of other clinicians. So tell me your challenge and let's work through it.
So I'm working with athletes from different levels,
Yep.
high school, college,
Yep.
pro,
Love it.
and each have different uh, management,
Yep.
yes,
Yes.
systems in
Yep.
place,
Yep.
right? Businesses, coaches, team, school.
Yep.
And so I'm trying to do my best to help treat each athlete
Yeah.
as an athlete,
Yeah.
but also get them back to be able to help their team, their coach, their organization
Yeah.
without stepping on toes,
Yeah.
because I'm not affiliated with each organization. I
Yeah.
want to make sure that my job as a third party
Yeah.
isn't encroaching on anybody else's approach.
Yeah. And you're a third party, right?
I am.
Yeah. So the obviously you have a passion for this. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be doing this, right? So I think overarching everything, they gotta feel that. Not know that, but they gotta feel it. And for those of you watching on the YouTube channel, I'm just writing a lot of this content down so I can kind of make sure that I'm on the same path to answer his question the best. So along that spectrum, have you initiated anything? What's been that process, or you're about to initiate and you want to use the right strategy?
Both.
Nice.
On the high school side of things,
Yep.
I have a good relationship with the athletic trainer
Yep.
who unfortunately just got another job opportunity, so he's going to be leaving.
Oh, yep. Here we go
But
again.
I've had a good history of working well with their athletic trainers and
For
having
sure.
a good communication system in place there.
Yep.
And I know one of the assistant coaches really well, and
Nice.
so uh, I've got my in on that side.
Yep.
On the collegiate side, it gets a little bit tougher. I don't have connections with the coaches just yet.
Yeah. Yep.
I've worked with the athletic trainers in the past
Yep.
because a handful of athletes have gotten referred either
Not.
down to my clinic or
Yep.
to
Yep.
me specifically. So
Yep.
I try to always loop in the athletic trainers and what
Yep.
I'm seeing and how we can work together there. So I've got a
For
good
sure.
relationship with those athletic trainers.
Love it.
But then on the professional side of things, I don't have any connection to uh, anybody else in the athlete's world other than the athlete.
I see. I see. Okay. I love that. All right. So there's three different scenarios. We have the high school, collegiate, and pros, and you have a cascading amount of connections as you go down that chain. So in high school, you got a lot of connections. In the collegiate, a little bit of connections, and then with your pro, it's less. Welcome to every PT on the planet. It's very, very real. So your goal here is how do we navigate this and make it strategic so that way you don't come off harsh or like you're the, I call it the main chef, right? Like you're the main cook. All right. So anything else in context, what else we should be putting into this equation, or that's pretty much the scenario?
I think that's the scenario.
Awesome. All right. So before we dive into like what to do, let's talk about what not to do. Because I think that seems really, really basic. But the first thing we can't do is anytime that you're forming relationships, I'm going to use a really negative connotation. People think of this term really negative, but I love it, and I think it's relationship building. So, like anytime that you and I have a relationship, or anybody else has a relationship, it's this relationship building, which is a little form of don't yell at me. It's sales, okay? And what I mean by that is anytime. When I met my wife, it took her 2 years to say yes to me. 2 years to take it on a date. It took so long to develop that relationship. And I had to sell myself as why should I be the one she should like connect with, right? And it took such a long time. And one of the first things I've learned with the more relationships that we build, and especially in the pro world, is fast never works, right? It's like a relationship you like dating somebody, like fast doesn't work. So it's going to take a little bit of time. So this is going to require consistent communication. So you can't expect that first one you guys shake hands and they like love you. That's not the name of the game. The name of the game here is reps, right? So you got to inject little bits of communication frequently and not overstep those bounds. So first thing we're not going to do is we're not going to make this a fast game. And I think when people don't put that into context, they expect that, man, this new opportunity, they want to be the first one out there, they want to like introduce, and they want to be the first like to gain it. And I think working in pro sports, even now, I understand that when I feel like a new grad or somebody coming in hot for an opportunity, I'm like, I have to back off because I know that's like, why are you trying so hard? Why are you trying so fast? And so the first thing I'm going to put on here is that we don't want to go fast. We're going to take some time. So you're going to have number of reps. So if you have time on your hands, then you're in a good place. You do have time. We're good.
Yeah. Yep.
Good. So you're going to take your time. And the second thing you have to do here is we're not going to go fast. Number two is they got to feel everything that you're saying. Now, how do we make them feel a certain way? It's got to be definitely different modes of communication. And what I mean by that is, one, you got to show face. So I got to get you in their face. So we need in-person visits. So that might start with an email. You might call, email, or go in person. So whatever version that means to you, you got to get in front of their face, because the best opportunity you have is when they can sense it and feel it. On an email, that's only one platform, right? They can't sense tone, they can't sense any of that. Text message, phone might be a little bit better because they can hear your intonation, but the second part is you got to get an in-person meeting. Now, the in-person meeting is always the most challenging, right? You're busy, they're busy, blah, 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 but you're going to make it happen. So you need consistent, persistent communication until you get in person, get in front of their face, and genuinely tell them why your approach is. So once we said we're not going to go fast, they got to feel what they're needed. They have to feel it. The next thing is when you get prepped and you actually meet them, what are you saying, right? So the big thing you have to remember is Zachary doesn't matter. Physical therapy doesn't matter. That's not what they're looking for here, right? I'm going to talk about the pro level because then we can make that easy application to the high school. In the pro world, whoever it is you're talking to, the GM, the coach, the head coach, the assistant coach, the athletic trainer, okay, everybody cares about one thing, and that's the athlete. How does this benefit our athlete? And then what's the outcome? That we win, that we are a revenue generating or a win producing company. And how is this athlete then going to support that? And the way that you approach that is, well, most physical therapists would say, hey, I'm a physical therapist. I can rehab their knees, or I can get them faster, right? But I said fast doesn't work. They don't care about fast. They care about consistent, right? So your aim, your target, your vision of how you're going to help them is the long game. That's where you're going to separate a lot of people. Most PTs or chiros or MTs trying to jump in this are like, I'll get them better fast. Like, I'll be the fastest one. They don't care about that. What produces revenue and wins? A good season, right? So your focus is the long game. So you're going to focus in on keeping them healthy throughout the whole season. That's where you're going to, that's your pivot point. That's where you're going to focus on. I'm here to support this athlete or whoever it is all season long. Yes, you can get people who are going to, get them better fast. My vision here is so you have a consistent season with wins more than you had last year. Now you're speaking my language, because now you're saying, oh, my job is secure by bringing you on here as well. Do you get that? Right? You're helping them win. And both parties, at the center of that is the athlete. I'm here to help you keep your athlete healthy for the long game. Why? So that you can produce more wins and your company and your team can be successful. I get that. And I understand that you and everything you're doing here is going to be dependent on this athletes or these collective athletes doing that. I'm here to just help this one athlete, and I don't want to overstep anybody's bounds, but I'm here to help. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Zachary. I'm a physical therapist. I've been working in such and such. And more importantly, I'd like to help your team and company do the same and be successful. So, and nothing there said my qualifications, my CSCS, my specialty. I'm a specialist in any of that. You know why? Because they don't care, Zachary. You get that? The worst thing you can do is talk about yourself. So that's the next piece. It's not about you. All right. It's not about you. It's about who? The athlete and what they're going to do when they're healthy to produce for that company. So the focus is not you. You can be ready to talk about your certification and everything else. But if they ask you, like, why are you so special? What are you going to do for us? That's essentially what they're thinking. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Right. Most PTs are going to come off and say, well, I'm a McKenzie certified and I can keep all your backs healthy and I'll get them better faster. How about we don't talk about injury and we talk about longevity and ensure that they're not injured? That's a different perspective, right? So we haven't talked about this, but we don't even know who your contact points are. We don't even know if that's what you're going to do athletic trainer, you're going to do coach, or you're going to do GM. So but no matter what, that same approach is actually going to be the same across everybody. Would you agree?
Makes sense.
Right. So I'm just going to give you a framework for you to apply to whoever you talk to. Now you'll have to, navigate that just a little differently for every single person. But first, don't make it fast. They got to feel what you say. And this is not about you. This is about the athlete. This is an athlete-centered approach. Not fast, make them feel it. And the athlete needs to be the primary thing that you talk about. And then if not, then it's about the organization, how you're going to support that for the longevity of how you can support them, right? So let me ask you this, Zachary. How can you be an asset to their team?
I think one is availability.
Oh, okay. So now you're separating yourself, right? Now you're saying, like, what's going to set me over the edge, right? And you're going to have your 4 to 5 bullet points on, like, what it is, right? So I get that. So what you want to do is have that prepped for you, right? Now, this is not a job application. You're just saying that you want to be able to support these people more consistently, and you want to be the preferred provider. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so that's good language right there. More than anything else, I'm not here to, do anything else. But I'd love to be your preferred provider, to take over your overflow, your challenging cases, to be able to offload you. Now, what's the problem that you are trying to solve for them? What are the current challenges that they have that you can solve? So you said availability. What other challenges are you going to solve for them? Do they have a time problem? Do they have a lot of athletes and not enough support?
In this case, we've got people in the off season, so I think the biggest problem would be performance and injury prevention.
Okay, so I see. All right. All right. All right. In the case of pro world, there's two problems you're trying to solve: money or time. What does injury prevention do? Which one does it solve?
Say that again.
In the world of pro sports, you solve two problems: money or time. How does injury prevention solve one of those, or both?
On the time side, you have your athletes throughout the season.
Yep.
Right. So less time loss injuries.
Time loss.
And then on the money side, with your team being there, ideally you're performing at a higher level because you have your best players available. So the organization can go make money winning more games.
That's it. But you have a better understanding of that. And there's not a lot of clinicians who can think like that, because you're thinking about the knee. You're thinking about the back. The organization and the coach and the athletic trainer is like in the back of their head, like, my job is writing on this. My job is writing on this. So yeah, no, that's a really good point. So you're here to help on the performance side, injury prevention side, with the overarching goal of saving time lost or preventing time lost and revenue lost because the team can't perform at its highest level because you have people out. So that's the skill that you're going to bring to them. That's the asset that you're going to do, with the athlete at the center of it and the organization, how they're going to win. You have to approach it in your three different manners, but at some point you got to get in person. You got to show your face, and they got to feel what you're saying. And this can't happen fast, and that you're here to support them throughout it. And now, if it doesn't work out, your leverage is, I can help you for the long. Like, if it's not now, I'd love to be a preferred provider down the line. And what that allows them to see is that you're not in a rush. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So off of that, those are your big bullet points. What specific questions can we help you navigate after that? Because we talked about high school, we talked about collegiate and pro. But if we talk top level, now at the collegiate level or high school, you just need to know who's your direct point of contact, right? Right. All right. What questions do you have there? That was the first one.
So if my first contact, when my first contact is the athlete here.
Yeah.
In the session, I'm doing my job as a physical therapist, right?
Yes.
Giving them recommendations, educating, treating.
Yes.
Right. And setting a plan of care for that athlete for the amount of time that I have.
Yes.
Does any of that start to overstep with what that athlete has gone through in the past in terms of their typical treatment approach?
Yes.
And I guess, does it conflict with things there? And how do I communicate to that point person first before the athlete goes back saying, well, I'm getting this information from this new person?
For sure. Got it. That's the question.
That's my question.
Love that. You're smart. Zachary, you're very smart. I see what you're doing. You don't want, you want to start this, but you don't want to be the person who is, yeah, you're right. If that athlete beats you, you look bad, right? And the story changes because what you told them, right? Like every story like is diluted every time that one person communicates it to the next. That's why you have to be the storyteller right from the get-go. So then ultimately, all right, so here's the question. You're working with somebody on a plan of care, you're working with them and you don't want to overstep their past treatment and you want to beat them to the punch to be able to support them seamlessly with their primary provider or their centralized person, whoever that is. Now, if you're in high school, it's probably their athletic trainer. If you're in college, it's probably their athletic trainer / they might have another physio or team member on there. And if you're working in the pros, that's probably their PT or MD or athletic trainer who's the central process and decision maker. All right. So off of this, who are you communicating to? So let's go high school because I think you've had that relationship. So the first thing you have to do there is I would 100% get on a call in terms of triaging. I'd go call number one because that way an email is going to get lost. I would go call, email, and quickly follow up with an in-person visit if you have the time. Like, is this one of the main high schools in the area which you guys already have a relationship, or you're fighting for that relationship?
No, this is an already established relationship.
Oh, that's easy peasy. Then that's a phone call, right? Yeah. So for an existing relationship, that's easy. That's an email that you can beat to the punch. But for a non-existing relationship, I would 100% get on a call, send them an email, and then get in front of their face first, so that way you're gonna soften the blow to be able to have a upfront conversation. Hey, I'm just the second person here. I'm here to support your athletes and your organization. And I think when you put it like that, I have no problem. Like if you're humble in your career and you feel like you have the stability in your life to say, I am okay being the second provider and not the primary, then you have to approach it like that. And I've done this and I still will continue to do it. We work with pro athletes all the time and they have primary athletic trainers. They have in other states, whatever it is. I don't care. I'm not the point person. I'm not here for a celebrity contest. I'm here to support the athletes. So I have no problem with that. And I think you need to phrase that. So opening, I'm saying, hey, I understand it's your athlete and I'm here to support them. But I also understand that you may not be able to manage them, in a different setting, or they're with you only 4 days a week, whatever it is. I'm here to help wherever I can. Knowing that, here's what they're presenting me with, and I'd love to be able to support them. Is there anything you would like for me to do with them? And what you're doing there is you're asking, where can I help? And then saying, hey, if you don't mind, I've got a couple of different things. I'll be sure to communicate with you throughout the whole process. But I always love your feedback and everything else that you need to do. Just know I'm an open book. Feel free to reply. Let me know what you're changing, and I'll give you everything you need to know to be able to be successful and have the athlete move forward. What questions do you have for me, right? And then it allows them to still be the leader without you puffing your chest. Do you get that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I've worked as a primary person, but I've also worked a lot of times as the tertiary fourth person. So I would say I would have that communication, because in theory, that's not the first athlete that you're going to have that challenge with. If they're on a team, you're probably going to get multiple of those same team members, right? So you got to beat it to the punch. So for an existing relationship, you can do an email, but for non-existing, call, email, go in person, have that exact same conversation, look at this replay and literally use it word for word, whatever you want to do. But ultimately, don't puff your chest, be humble, and you'll get your turn is the easy way to see that. You will get your turn. You will be the primary. And once you're sitting on the other side, you'll see how fast people try to come in and puffing their chest and like, I got the new technique, I got the new laser, and it's the thing that's going to solve them. And you're the primary and you're like, really? Like, it's a whole season. Yes, it's going to get them better for 2 games, but like, I have a whole season to manage. Like, don't do that. And you have to see it from their side. At the high level, don't be that person who you don't want to work with. I think is the big one off of that. Okay, so off of that, what is the takeaway on there? Like, what's actionable for you?
Be a support player.
Yeah.
And take time.
Yeah.
Sit back, and let things develop.
Yeah, but I think that there's nothing wrong with consistent communication. So you are the one at top of mind, because
Yeah,
in the
sure.
pro world and even collegiate, it takes time to get in there, or the right opportunity, right? You just had that one connection and they just got you in. But other than that, if you're helping organically, then you gotta, like, it's time or money. So you gotta donate your time consistently to be
Mhm.
able to afford that opportunity. And that might be a volunteer opportunity, or you just get the athletes better. But coming in humble, consistent, not puffing your chest, and you're getting outcomes, they're like, who is this Zachary person? Like, I've heard the name multiple times. And once you earn that, you're earning reputation. And that's ultimately what they don't want, is they don't want to lose time or money. And if they want to put somebody into that organization, they had to have known that person. And so they're going to go off of word of mouth referrals. That's how, like, the pro and collegiate world goes. And if you can be that word of mouth, that's ultimately what you're trying to do. Okay. All right. So we talked about the things not to do. Don't go fast. Make them feel it. Athlete centered. How you're going to help the organization with time and money. We talked about the approach and how you're going to approach them. Call, email, in person. And for you, your takeaway on that is time. And that it's going to take a little bit of time to develop that relationship. Offer that question.
I have another question
Tell me.
about the consistent communication
Yeah.
piece.
Tell me more.
So for you, you're located in San Diego,
Yes.
right? Let's say you have somebody from the East Coast
Yeah.
who, in their off season, is coming to spend some time in San Diego,
Yes.
hears about you, and ends up with you.
Yes.
But you're going to lose them at some point. They're
Yes.
going back to their organization,
Absolutely.
the East Coast,
Yep.
right? So you are no longer the point person
Yes.
for treatment, supporting,
Yeah.
or primary.
Yes.
Where does communication come in at that point?
Yep.
Or does it end when they go back and they do their thing,
Mm.
and maybe that opportunity arises again if they end up back in San Diego?
Yes.
Or it's that was your time and it was great to work with
Mm.
that person and you move on?
Yeah. Great. All right. So this is a good question, because this happens literally to us every summer. Every summer we have, well, actually we have different seasons. So we have, like, NFL will end, sorry, collegiate will end in January. Then they're all doing combine testing until, like, February, March, and then they depart. And then we have MLB in March, April, and then like, it's just seasons, right? So I'm with you 100%. So here is how I would work this. Okay, so to answer every question, you have to ask, who is the head chef? Who is the primary at what stage? So if you were for the summer, that's fine. Then you have this gray area when they were coming to you, who was seeing them before, and then who's transitioning, so you can be the primary. And then when they transition out, there'll be a gray area. Now, if they leave for the summer and they leave out of state, out of the city, whatever it is,
Mhm.
in theory, you can't do the hands-on. But what you can do is, like, maybe injury progression, strength and conditioning to bridge them back in, right? But are you still the primary when they leave, is the question.
No.
Okay, so you answered your own question there, in that then at that point you have to turn over the reins to somebody. Now the athlete might say, like, well, I liked your strategy, I like yours, and that's perfect. Like, that's an honor. So then at that point, you have to figure out what you're bridging back in. Are you working with a strength coach, or are you working with their medical profession to bridge them back in? So, like, say for instance, they're like a grade 3 ankle sprain and they're like going back into season, and you built out progressions. So
Mhm.
the best thing you can do from an insurance policy standpoint is build out their entire strength program. Like, we'll build out what you forecast. So if they're leaving you on August 1st and they're going to be back in their own town the next day, and you know that they have a month gap, the best thing to do is build out the homework so the new provider doesn't have to think
Mhm.
and say, here are my recommendations. Here's already pre-templated, like 5 days a week, 3 workouts plus 2 rehab days, 2 active recovery days, and here's a strength integration. As a provider, I'd be like, you just made my job easier. And that's where you have to think about it. So I would build it out. In the event they don't use it, they can use whatever they want. But what you did is you set them up for success. Now they look better. That healthcare provider, if somebody did to me, I'd be like, why would I fight that? That's a great like bridge. So I would say you're the primary chef for the summer, and then you're going to do an integration piece back in with pre-templated exercises and drills and say, here are my recommendations. And then you have a communication with that primary and say, hey, I've already built this. You can do whatever you want with it. I just know here's what I've been looking at. Here's what I would go aggressive with and not. Give them a little bumpers, and so they can map that out for them as well. And you can stay in touch with them, but you have to acknowledge that you're no longer the primary, and you have to verbalize that to the athlete, because it doesn't do anybody any a great opportunity if you are behind the scenes programming for them and they're not being honest. You look really bad. You're going to look really, I know, like Zachary, you're like, man, but I could totally do it better. But at some point, then that's a conversation to be had with that primary, or you're CCing them on those things. Don't go behind the scenes. Don't go behind, as tempting as it is, and you're like, I can do it better. Great. What you're saying there is you're acknowledging that there's a hierarchy and that you're not the primary for their organization. That would be my 2 cents on that.
Okay. And so then that's where the communication piece comes into of this is how we have been progressing.
Yes.
While I was the
Yes.
primary
Yes.
chef here.
Yes.
This is what we were following.
Yes.
Here it is.
Yep.
You can have it.
Yep.
Right. You can follow it. You cannot.
Perfect.
But
my recommendations.
Here's how we've gone.
Yes.
Now he's with you.
Yes.
With you.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And to be honest, the way I set up my team and the way we manage this is there's a weekly email going out to the head athletic trainer or their head physician or whoever it is. There's a weekly update. I'm CC'd on it. Our lead PT is CC'd on it. The athlete's CC'd on it. Their MD, everybody else is CC'd on it. So there's no ambiguity of what has been happening in progress. So we remove the voice component of it so that story doesn't change. That percent increase has been gone here, clearance is here, here's the yellow lights, here's the green lights, and here's where we're progressing. We're on track to be there in 1 month when they depart. And if they don't reply, cool. You didn't say no to it. I just told you where we are on track. And what that does is like, it's an email they can like just save somewhere or swipe or be like, it's okay, it's fine. All right, they're on track. That's all I need to know. And then your name keeps popping up on their email inbox. I know it's a lot of work for you, but in the pro world, this is what we have to do literally like every day, send summary emails on injury rehab and everything else. So that's why if you were at the accelerator course, my big thing is that grid with the yellow, green, and yellow lights. And it's so easy, like vertical power, linear speed, multi-directional, and they're like yellow light, yellow light, yellow light. And that way they can globally approach it to them. So I would go weekly emails, is what I would say. Weekly emails. I know it sounds like a lot, man. It's not ideal, but it's the nature of the game if you want to play the game, especially when there's a lot of money and time being invested in people.
It also isn't that much of a time commitment.
Yeah, it's not. People think about it. It's like not. It's kind of like a daily note, but a little bit more. You're basically sending a progress note without, like, once you make it once, now you're just like editing little pieces of it. Okay. So we talked about what not to do. Don't do fast, make them feel it. Athlete and longevity, saving time and money for the organization. We said the style of how to communicate, and then we also just talked about how, if they're here for the summer, how to navigate the relationship if a pro athlete's here for the summer, or when they leave, what happens? Who do you do it? How often do you do it? Who do you do it for? And the best way to navigate that. What it comes down to is, who is the chef for any given scenario? Any pro, college, sports, it doesn't matter. And you got to take your time so you don't step on toes. And if you do it that way, it's a healthy relationship. And you're just that person who just was willing to put in the time and effort into the relationship so you can wait till they were ready. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right. So off of that first bullet point, that was the first question. What other questions do you have? And then let me start there. What other questions do you have off of that one?
Let me finish my note here.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Go for it.
I think from there,
Yep.
With the pro level,
Yep.
it sounded like at the very beginning of this conversation that each organization has a little bit of a different structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that true, or should I expect to be communicating with the same a person in the same title
Yes.
per organization?
Okay. Yes is the answer to that. Okay, so here's generally as in the pro world, you're going to have let's go NFL, right? You have like the owner of the company or the owner of the team. Below that, generally we're going to have a general manager. So you're going to have a GM. Under that GM, there might be some other like small organizational differences, but ultimately they'll have the head coach. And underneath that head coach, they're going to have all the position coaches and everything else underneath that. Okay. And depending on the organization, underneath that GM, they're going to have medical, like a whole separate organizational chart for medical. And underneath medical, they will typically have a primary MD or a surgeon that is kind of their team doc or team physician, right? And then they will have, depending on the organization, they will have a primary athletic trainer or PT. That's typically what is had. Now, they won't have a full-time physician on staff. They'll have a consulting physician that comes in every Wednesday or Thursday or every game day. That's typically it. They don't have them on staff all year long. There's actually like a very low need for it. They're just seasonal employees, seasonal workers. So who is employed full-time? That's what you have to figure out. Who is the full-time decision maker for medical? And that's typically the primary ATC or the PT. Okay. Now, if that's the case, they will also have contract massage therapists. They will have contract chiropractors. They'll contract MTs and PTs and ATCs. Now, what you need to do is you got to make sure you don't jump above them. Does that make sense? Because now you look really bad. Now what you said is, hey, let me talk to the head coach or the GM. Yeah, not the way to go. You got to figure out who the full-time staff member is, who controls medical. And once you can do that, then that's who the communication needs to be with, because then they need to take it up the ranks to everybody else. But if you went straight to the GM directly, and now the athletic trainer has to like report to you or now include you, it's a weird relationship. That's a weird relationship. I've seen it happen. And that just ruins the dynamic, like the energy of the team. Like they don't even want you there. So I think you need to find the full-time staff member, because that will help you dictate what the next step is. Not that the seasonal workers are great, but ultimately, like they're only going to put your name in a hat, but they're also trying to make it to the top two. You understand? So find the primary, work the relationship with them, and that's typically how the pro world is. I guess that's very similar to like high school or collegiate. That's pretty very similar in that even though that team is owned by the school, but that's pretty similar setup. Yes, you can meet the head coach and you can work your way there, but I think that on the side you have to be developing the strongest relationship with the medical so they can vouch for you. Because if a coach says, hey, I want this athlete in, or I want this provider in, they're going to be helping, and the other athletic trainer is like, I don't even know who they are, I don't think they're that good, that is the athlete suffers, because the athletic trainer or PT won't refer your way. So find the full-time staff member and work your way there.
Is that something you can just figure out by Googling safe?
Yeah. I think what you're going to do is you're going to find like, you're going to say head athletic trainer, head PT, whatever it is. And then typically you'll see it, and then it'll be like seasonal team member or contract, massage therapist, whatever it is. And honestly, like look at their like webpage, and then like you're going to see GM, coach, all these other people, and then you'll see like a full-time medical, and usually the first person listed under medical is like their head person. It'll even say like head or whatever it is, or lead or senior or whatever it is, and that's the point person you want to go to as much as possible. And if there's junior people underneath that, that's fine. They don't make the decisions that head person is. So if you're looking at supporting, you're not overstepping everybody. You're just saying, how can I support even your most junior people? That's the way you're going to approach it. And that's where you're going to win. You'll be like, I see you have a staff of 5 or 6. How can I be able to support them to be able to help your athletes? You're not trying to say, that's I think where people go wrong. They try and say that they like to help them, but I think you also need to say that, you know, you recognize that there's people underneath them and that you want to support them so they actually look better. What that does is saves them time. Right? They don't have to always be working on their staff members. Now you're an additional asset to them too. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Good. Out of that, what was surprising for the organization?
That it doesn't have to be, or it's usually not the team doc or surgeon who would be the point contact.
Yeah. And you know, what's interesting is because most of them work for a hospital. Like if you can think of a pro team or a collegiate team in your area, right? Like think about this. That doc works probably for a hospital or a private practice, and they have surgery dates and in-house dates and everything else where athletes can go see them at their facility, or they have a designated day they come over to university and do, you know, injury assessments. If it's an ACL, they need to confirm it, blah blah blah. And then typically what they'll say is, this needs an in-depth look, send them over to my office. That's typically the case. So they're not typically employed by the school. I mean, that's a big salary. They typically are contracted in as a all year long. They can use them as a resource, or they're a seasonal employee during the season. And that's at the pro level, and every organization is going to be a little different. But what you're looking for is the people who are there consistent and all year long. Those are the decision makers to help you navigate that relationship.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Those were window really quick.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Getting loud.
So those were Zachary's 2 questions to start off. One of them was, you have multiple athletes. How do you improve the communication amongst all 3 different profiles? And then how to understand the organizational setup. Those were your 2 big questions that you wanted to get across, Zachary. What other questions do you have off of those 2 questions?
You know, the other question I have written down that I think we've answered is, if you have somebody in that organizational chart that maybe isn't as welcoming of your opinion, how do you disarm that and still find the best way to treat the athlete?
Man, we have a saying at Sports Performance, and you just kill them with kindness, man. Outcomes, right? You got to prove it to them. Who are you is the question they're asking, right? And I think people are like that because they're defensive in life, right? Like they're scared of losing their job. They're scared of losing their identity, and their identity is their professional career. And to me, you got to realize, like, if you lose an athlete, right, you work so hard to do that, but it's not the end of the world to you, right? You're like, you're okay with that. You're secure with yourself. You're like, it's fine. I won't just find another athlete, but they'll come back because you've played this long game where I know that my skills and my personality, like, if they love you, they'll find you again. And because that's what they're going to appreciate. And the people who are worried about somebody coming in is they're not safe with that. And what I have to do is recognize that. And the way you do that, show outcomes. You're always looking up at them, being humble. You know, I'm not here to overstep, and you just play this massively long game and you chip away at them. For some, I've played with this and I've done it. Some take me months and take me years. Sometimes it's a firm conversation on the front end. I'm not here to help. I'm not here to overstep you. You are the main point person. I'm here to help. And I understand that's going to take you a little time, but what I'm going to do here is I will be here every day. I will be showing you that, and I'm here to work hard. And if that's okay with you, I'd love to be part of this team and organization with you. And sometimes it takes an upfront conversation. I'll leave it up to you to figure that out. You need an upfront conversation, or you kill them with kindness in the long game. And if that doesn't work, then you're gonna have to one day just have that, like, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to take your position. I'm here to help. You gotta worry over your comfort level. Every personality is different. I'm not sure. Are you more of a upfront or long game type of a guy?
Long game.
All right. Most PTs are. Most PTs are. You know why? Just because we care about the person. We're like, we don't want to do that. I just want to work here and like do my thing. I don't need the headache. I'm not a political type of a guy. I don't want to get into the politics of this organization. I would agree with that. I'm a long gauge move guy, but as I grow more and more PTs, sometimes it's needed if you've done it for a certain period of time and you give yourself a metric and you're like, it hasn't happened, then at some point we need to make sure that all those things were done right. And if they are not done right, it requires a good conversation. So that's what I would do. All right. So Zachary, out of all those things, we've covered quite a bit. Give me your main takeaways, and I'll put this into context for the listeners. Like, what's your you wanted to get an idea of all these communications. You're getting into a new domain. What's your biggest takeaways, man?
I think I need to make sure that I'm aligning my goals with the organization's goals.
Okay.
Right? You said money and time for the organization.
Yep.
And I'm here worried about each athlete's body ailment.
Yeah.
Right. And that while it falls in the same world,
Yeah.
it's not exactly the same. And so
Yep.
if I'm able to communicate to the team that I'm on the same goal as them,
Yeah.
and a support staff for that same
Yeah.
combined goal,
Yep.
then that's where I'll end up having success.
Yeah. You got to zoom out. You got to zoom out. And this is the biggest challenge I have with clinicians, in that we've never like thought that way, right? We're here to like serve. That's our job. We're here to service people and body parts, right? But at the grand scheme of it, I think that there's one thing all of us have to meet. I always bring up my wife as an example because it took me 2 years to gain her attention. But I think it's the expectations, right? So like anytime that I set a meeting or I set something up with somebody, there has to be expectations, so that we're both on the same page. And the problem is that we don't ever ask the question of like what your expectations are. So at the beginning of this call, I asked, what are your expectations about this call, so I can solve those problems. And ultimately, if you can set that, then everything should fall in line with that. But if you haven't had that conversation of setting the expectation, you're over here working your tail off, and they're over here complaining like this person doesn't even do their job. But you're like, but I'm working hard. But you're like, you're down the wrong path.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't, like, they just need a jive. So you're doing the right thing, but you're just going off of a different scenario. And I think the same is true with your relationships and your patients and your athletes. Now you're dealing with an organization, not one human. And that's the heart. That's what you're navigating now, right? You're navigating an organization, which might be an org chart or a group of providers. And ultimately, the group of providers wants a solution. And that solution is, how do we continue to be sustainable and keep our athletes long term, so we can all have jobs at the end of the season and have a winning ring or medal or whatever it is. So I think that's good. All right, perfect. One more takeaway. What do you got?
Don't go fast.
Don't go fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think there's a little bit of that, where my questions were, how do I disarm ego and other people? And one of my takeaways is probably I need to disarm my own, and be okay not being the point person. And when it's not my time to be the
Yes.
primary chef anymore, allowing that to take its natural course, because that's what needs to happen. That's
Yeah.
how the timeline should go.
Yeah, because you're patient-centered and athlete-centered and person-centered, actually, like forget the label. And in order for that person to succeed, they might be having to be sent off somewhere else. You're like, but I did all this work, please don't mess it up. Or they might get the recognition. And that's hard for a lot of us because we work so hard our whole life to be able to do that. Don't go fast, right? Just don't. It's not worth it. You will burn a lot of bridges, and the people who go slow and steady, those are the ones over time who will win. It's like not right now, but like stock market and all this stuff. You play this long game where you're just like comfortable, you just let it go, and those are the ones that are most successful long term. You're gonna see these people come and go, right? Like Instagrammers, influencers, like you're gonna see them come and go, but the ones who can play this massively long game and be people centered are the ones who are going to be able to help people long term. So just like that with you guys as clinicians, don't ever forget that. And there's not a lot of people telling you that because it's hard to keep focus on that. They're over here trying to chase a shiny object. You got to let go of your ego. And Zachary, I really appreciate that, man. I really appreciate the context of that, and I think that that's going to be perfect, and you'll be set up for success. So, actionable items. What's your number one thing you're going to go and do? Email, call, go in person, jump for joy. What are you doing? What's the number one thing you're doing? What do you got after this call?
Find the point person.
Ah, that's
recognize who I need to communicate with.
For sure. Now your strategy. Now you're like, I'm gonna look for this person, and I'm gonna come in super humble, and I'll play this long game. Yeah, versus trying to go through the athlete and then like chipping away. That's so long. It's gonna take so long. So good for you. Now you're more efficient. You won't waste your time, and you're coming in slower than ever. All right, that helps. Perfect. Zachary, anything else for the call?
No, I really appreciate this.
Yeah, of course. Listeners, if you didn't know, Zachary has been attended a lot of my my courses, and I love his framework and his approach, and I've seen him grow as a clinician. It's exciting to me. And if any of this makes sense, and you know, you want to do a strategy call with me, let me know, Dr. Chris at drchrisgarcia.com. And that's how this started for today. Is like, where do I go from here? If but which means you have to require a lot of thinking beforehand to make sure that you're on the right path. And if that sounds perfect for you, let me know. Send me an email, Dr. Chris at drchrisgarcia.com, and we'll get on a strategy call. Zachary, we appreciate you and your time, and I hope this has helped. And we will catch you guys on the next episode. Take care.